Hi, this is Jim from Safety Wars. Before we start the program, I want to make sure everyone understands that we often talk about OSHA and EPA citations, along with some other regulatory actions from other agencies, legal cases, and criminal activity. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Proposed fines are exactly that, and they are often litigated, reduced, or vacated. We use available public records, news accounts, and press releases. We cannot warranty or guarantee the details of any of the stories we share, since we are not directly involved with these stories, at least not most of the time. Enjoy the show.
This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
And from OSHA Region 3, Safety Wars. How's everybody doing out there today? A lot of stuff going on. It's not a lot of OSHA news, right? Accidents and everything. Got a lot of good feedback from last night's program, specifically the video. I mean, it was one of our most successful videos ever. Real simple. We commented on the yesterday on the VPP program, and the testimony from OSHA and everything, and I put it in, hour and a half program, and we had a lot of people listen to it, more than anything else, for an hour and a half. So we'll be doing more of that. We have a couple of things lined up tonight, specifically on disaster preparedness. And because we're slowly but surely coming up to Disaster Preparedness Month in September, and in August, the Safe and Sound program, this year is Disaster Preparedness for your business. So we're going to be doing some stuff there with that as we go along. And we have some videos, so they're older, from FEMA about disaster preparation, but they're still relevant to what we're doing. And what I remember, they're pre-COVID things. So, now, for years, even before there was the Safety Wars, that's what I did with my clients. They had Disaster Preparation Month, and we released things in social media, websites, things of that nature. And then when we did this, every September we talk about it. So usually, 3 to 5 programs a week. We don't do an awful lot, 15, but there are so many things going on there. With that. Now, today is a 1-year anniversary that East Palestine, Ohio report came out with the 34 recommendations for that. We're going to review that, not tonight with that, but that's going to be in the very near future. Some follow-up on there, and we'll be fine there. The other thing, hold on, let me... with this, some other thing here. All right. So this one is some follow-up also. Russ Summer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, released from prison 13 months after involuntary manslaughter conviction. And that was back in May. So that one got under our radar there. But Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the armor who was working on Western movie Rust when the film's cinematographer Helena Hutchins was killed in an on-set shooting in 2021, was released from prison Friday. And this was back in May. Date of the article is May 23rd from CBS News. At the time, she was acquitted of a second charge of evidence tampering, but she was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. The parole board of the state of New Mexico granted to Gutierrez-Reed parole Friday, according to a parole certificate. That parole runs through May 23rd, 2026. Her certificate says she is required to follow conditions set forth by the board, some of which include electronic monitoring, following a curfew, and either getting a job or enrolling in school. Gutierrez-Reed was paroled to Arizona in order to report there immediately, according to the certificate. She received a maximum penalty for her part in the October 2021 tragedy when actor Alec Baldwin discharged live rounds from a prop gun on this movie set during a rehearsal. killing Hutchins and wounding the film's director, Joel Souza. The tragedy which shook the Hollywood community. Several experts said the death of Hutchins, who had a young son, was entirely preventable. And so anyway, when I'm reading the article here, and so, no, remember, there's a lot of stuff that we could garner from that as a safety professional. So as essentially, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed was the armorer, but actually she was acting the capacity of a safety professional or a competent person is what we would call it the rest of the time. And we're always told, well, if you get it in writing or you're like not liable. This is what I was brought up on. And to a more or lesser extent, that's true. And here we had somebody who was told not to do her job. That's what the evidence, that's what the report, well, we went over the report here at least 3 times. And her employer gave her, don't do your job. Well, guess what? That's not a get out of jail free card with that. And how did that impact a lot of stuff? No, from what I know, and it's, no, that fact has percolated into a lot of times how we manage things. I would like to take credit for it on Safety Wars, but I don't think that would be right for me to take credit. Right? So make sure your role is defined on the job, what your responsibilities are, who's the decision maker with that. And if you get something in writing telling you not to do the job, doesn't mean that you don't do your job as a safety professional. And right, and realize that her immediate boss in a plea bargain, he got like 6 months under house arrest, something like that. Alec Baldwin, they dropped the case there. The company itself, Rust Reductions, got a $100,000 fine, and they had to finish the movie because of that. Not that those two things are unrelated. They ended up having to finish the movie up in Montana. Why? They didn't want a repeat violation in Arizona. There, right? So they went to a state that did not have a state OSHA like Arizona does. So that's what we could learn from that. Just because someone tells you not to do something does not mean absolve you from any guilt. Doesn't absolve you from responsibility. Now, if someone tells you to do something illegal, I would document it. And if you're a direct hire, report it to Human Resources. If you're not a direct hire, report it to whoever you report it to at that company. Right, so I have a rule where don't ever ask me to do something illegal because I'm not going to do it. Real simple. I know I'm tempting fate there, some would say, but no, I don't ever plan on doing anything illegal at work. Don't do it. Ain't going to do it. Not going to happen. With that, and that's something you can learn. I mean, I've had to go for approvals for some of the or some of the documents I submit to regulatory agencies and other things, and the people are like, I don't approve anything. I just review it. I don't approve anything. I approve it, I own it. And we're seeing that. No, before it was, look, I don't approve anything. Now, blah, 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 they just shrug. Now it's like, look, I don't approve anything. Well, that's part of part of the fallout, I think, from this. At least that's my experience. Here. All right. Now, for some reason, we have stuff coming up. I don't know with that. So we're going to go right to the EPA website. Like I said, not a lot going on over at the Department of Labor. Administrator Zeldin in Fox News. Trump's EPA clearing the regulatory path for America to dominate the global AI revolution. Upon returning from the Pennsylvania Energy and Innovation, this is from today, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin published an op-ed highlighting steps the agency is taking to reduce burdensome regulations, unleash American energy dominance, and make America the AI capital of the world. In keeping with President Trump's executive order in January to enhance U.S. leadership in AI, EPA is committed to increasing certainty in the permitting process that is crucial to securing power demand for data centers and related facilities. On Tuesday, along with President Trump and other administration officials, Administrator Zeldin traveled to Pennsylvania to share how EPA's commitment to partnering with state, local, and tribal air agencies is promoting ways for Americans to invest and develop AI domestically. A main pillar of Administrator Zeldin's Powering the Great American Comeback initiative is making the United States the AI capital of the world. The global race to harness the power of artificial intelligence, AI, has become. President Donald Trump got it right from the start when he issued an executive order on that. From day one, the EPA administrator, it was clear that EPA would have a major hand in permitting reform to cut down barriers that have acted as a roadblock so you can bolster the growth. All right, I'm not going to read a word for fur. In fact, it's an endeavor so important it's a core power. And those looking to invest in and develop AI should be able to do so in the U.S. while we ensure data centers and related facilities can be powered and operated in a cleaner manner with American-made technology. Now, I was listening to another interview from somebody else a couple of days ago, and basically we don't have enough power to power these data centers, to power all the AI, right? So according to Zeldin, in 10 years, 10% of the U.S. electric supply is going to be used by AI. A lot of stuff. I mean, and there were some other articles I came across where they have, so for example, and I'm guilty of this. I try to be polite, believe it or not. So I would write, no, on the EI, can you do the blah, 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 please. Well, you know that please? Oh, yeah. That please uses a lot of electricity and a lot of resources. So they said, this article I said was, don't put in any extemporaneous words in there because you're wasting energy. Okay, so make your prompt very efficient, is I guess what they're telling you. EPA wants to increase certainty for owner-operators in the permitting process, making it clear what kind of permits are needed for new and modified projects. And going on and on, at EPA, we're working on redefining pre-construction. What if finalized only require a company to obtain an air permit when the company actually breaks ground? A company looking to build an industrial facility or power plant should be able to build what it can before obtaining an emissions permit. For example, companies can install cement pads or conduct other construction activities that aren't related to regulated air emissions. Well, there's good and bad in that, right? One, you want to know what you got to work with at the end with things, number one. Number two is you're going to put all this money and then what happens? You don't get the permit. Remember, presidential, especially with this president, in 3 years he's going to be gone, right? Unless some amendments change the Constitution. Then someone else will come in. Right now, if you look at, and I hate to talk politics, well, actually, I love to talk politics, but no, I got to watch myself. Right now, there's no clear leader in the Republican or Democratic Party to become president. President Trump has a connection to people. Right? Some people, to the people who voted for, has a connection. I don't see anybody out there on the Republican side that can have that, as of today, July 17, 2025, has that charisma, that has that connection with people. Right? Vice President Harris didn't have it. Joe Biden did not have it towards the end of his term. We know what happened there. And a lot of these, no, there's not a quote-unquote leader. And how do we define leadership as a person of influence there? That's the leader who could, no, leadership is influence. Not seeing it there. Sorry, folks. I'm just calling it the way I see it. After the COVID stuff, right? After the COVID stuff, nobody trusts anybody, right? People are very apprehensive. Here we have, again, and my opinion, one man's opinion, you heard it here first. EPA Administrator Zeldin is looking for a higher office because this dude is all over the place with meetings and meeting with people, and a lot of every press release is about him. I'm not saying good or bad. I'm just saying a lot of press releases here are what he's doing, which is fine, right? He's promoting himself. EPA Administrator Zeldin and the administration reaffirms EPA's Indian policy and hosts a National Tribal Caucus meeting in D.C. Today, the U.S. EPA hosted the National Tribal Caucus Executive Committee to discuss human health and environmental protection and priorities in Indian country. During the meeting with Tribal Caucus Executive Chair Tabitha Langston of the Ottawa Tribe of Oklahoma, Vice Chair Scott Clow of the Ute Tribe, and Secretary Siobhan Smith of the Shinnecock Indian Nation, Administrator Zeldin reaffirmed the EPA policy for the administration of environmental programs on Indian reservations, also known as Indian policy. EPA is committed to working government to government with federally recognized tribes. Our engagement with tribes is central to achieving EPA's core mission of protecting human health and the environment and empowering the Great American Comeback. The EPA's unique federal trust relationship with tribal governments is foundational to our shared efforts to ensure clean air, land, and water for all Americans, said NTC Executive Committee Chair Tabitha Langston. Administrator Zeldin's reaffirmation today underscores the EPA's enduring commitment to the principles set forth in the Indian policy. EPA was one of the first federal agencies with a formal policy specifying how it would interact with tribal governments and to consider tribal interests in carrying out its mission. The Indian policy contains 9 fundamental principles to guide EPA's work with tribes, and it's going on and on. Here, let's see what the EPA policy is. We're going to click on this. So this is from 1984. 11/8/84, and it's a short document, but there's 8 things here. Nine. Let's see these. We can read them off here, right? The agency stands ready to work directly with Indian tribal governments on a one-to-one basis, rather than as subdivisions of other governments. The agency will recognize tribal governments as the primary parties for setting standards, making environmental policy decisions, and managing programs for reservations consistent with agency standards and regulations. The agency will take affirmative steps to encourage and assist tribes in assuming regulatory and program management responsibilities for reservation lands. The agency will take appropriate steps to remove existing legal and procedural impediments to working directly and effectively with tribal governments on reservation programs. The agency, in keeping with the federal trust responsibility, will assure that tribal concerns and interests are considered whenever EPA's actions and or decisions may affect reservation environments. The agency will encourage cooperation between tribal, state, and local governments to resolve environmental problems of mutual concern, and the agency will work with other federal agencies which have related responsibilities on Indian reservations to list their interests and support in cooperative efforts to help tribes assume environmental program responsibilities for reservations. And number 8, the agency will strive to ensure compliance with environmental statutes and regulations on Indian reservations. So my understanding is a lot of EPA rules, right, do not apply on an Indian reservation. Now, that's why a lot of them employ their own environment. They have their own environmental agency. They have people like us, right, in our audience here, helping them manage this stuff, and internal people, right? They send them out for credentialing and for education and everything. It's a good thing. Again, they're their own government, so why wouldn't they have somebody out there with that? But The agency will, and number 9, the agency will incorporate these Indian policy goals into its planning and management activities, including its budget, operating guidance, legislative initiatives, management accountability system, and ongoing policy and regulation development processes. And this was signed by William D. Ruckelshaus, November 8th, 1984. So, all right. EPA announces next phase of organizational improvements to better fulfill statutory obligations to deliver clean air, land, and water to all Americans. Modernize mission support. The U.S. EPA announced next phase of organizational improvements at the agency to better fulfill statutory obligations and provide clean air, water, and land for all Americans and modernize mission support. These workforce changes impact the Office of Mission Support, Office of the Chief Financial Officer, Office of Enforcement and Client Assurance, and Office of Land and Emergency Management. So what is it? Do they mention what they have? They just mention that they're doing. They don't really go into what it is, with this. But hey, I'm just reading them. So today, 2 things from the Department of Labor. Unemployment insurance weekly claims report. Again, this is from Department of Labor, transmission materials from this morning. And we're just going to do the summer year. In the week ending July 12th, the advanced figure for seasonally adjusted initial claims is 2021, a decrease of 7,000 for the previous week. The previous week's total was revised up by 1,000 from 227,000 to 228,000. 4-week moving average was 229,500, a decrease from and going on and on. So basically, what does this come down to? It's everything. If you look at the graph right here, everything is pretty much level here. All right, holding level. A little bit this way, a little bit that way, with that. Hey, now we got to go to our camera here. All right. Yeah, because we're done with the government websites until we go for our main event. At the end of this, we have a program on nuclear events, from the official thing. Now, we have a couple of stories here from study finds that deal with workplace news, right? So, again, man, they got stuff here, right? Studyfinds.org. And this is reviewed by Stephen Fink. Is your manager too soft? Harsh bosses are actually preferred by some, and here's why. And in a nutshell, people who see the world as a ruthless competitive worldview tend to respect harsh, antagonistic leaders. Those who believe the world is cooperative generally see the same managers as incompetent and misguided. Real-world examples like the viral Olive Garden manager show how these divisions play out, despite the fact most people still prefer collaborative leaders overall. This research is from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, reveals that people believe the world is fundamentally a dog-eat-dog environment where only the strongest survive, are far more likely to respect and even admire graceful, forceful managers. Those who see the opposite, view the same aggressive, aggressive style as a sign of poor judgment. This is hard. Dealing with regular workplaces, this might be good. Right? Collaborative, we all get along, everything else, that's good. Psychologically safe, you're not under stress. However, what if you're aggressively pursuing a goal? You have urgency. Do you want everybody to get along necessarily? That may not be the right thing to do. As my friend, and we're going to have a tribute to him, Zdzisław Kowarszewski used to say, sometimes you got to be the boss. It's just the way it is if you're going to manage people. Sometimes that's appropriate. Now, the thing is, that's what a lot of people think. Well, hey, everybody get along. And for some things, that works great. I'm working right now on a project where that's happening. Everyone's getting along. For the moment, every once in a while, you're dealing with people. Yeah, disagreement here, some disagreement there. Something like that. However, you need to know when to be that safety warrior. Right? There's a time for everything. Like the Bible says, Ecclesiastes. There's a season for everything. Sometimes you need that harsh boss. Sometimes you don't. And most of the time, people don't like harsh bosses. You want a toxic working environment? Have a harsh boss. You can't keep that up forever because it's regardless. So what am I saying? Go back and forth. Sometimes it's appropriate to have a hard boss. Sometimes it's not. And it says here, right, when tough management actually pays off, the findings certainly bring perspective in a world where more employees prefer managers that are sensitive to their workers' personalities. People with competitive worldviews don't just tolerate antagonistic leadership; they actively prefer it. These employees are more likely to say they would choose to work for a demanding manager, right? And less likely to quit jobs under tough bosses. Why? Because sometimes they get results. That's my opinion, not what this is. Why? Researchers found that people who see the world as a tournament to the top generally believe abrasive tactics get results. They see this behavior as practical, as a necessary tool for achieving goals. Who knows, right? So here we go, and here, the self-reinforcing workplace culture. Again, the people who like that stay. The ones who don't leave. But the other thing is this, all right? What good is, what are you doing? With your workforce? Here, you want to work in a place where everybody hates each other? I don't know, Jay Allen's book goes into this also. Why do so many American workers feel guilty about taking vacation days they've earned? My dedication was questioned. Managers or upper management have looked down upon taking time off. People think that maybe you're not as invested in the job, that you're shirking your duties. These are some of the few questions that were asked during a study. More than 88% of full-time private sector workers in the U.S. receive paid time off. This benefit is ostensibly in place to improve employee morale and well-being. Yet, a 2024 Pew Research study found that nearly half of American workers don't take all the vacation days they are allotted, and many of them feel as they're discouraged. Yeah, they probably do. Why? You got to cover that person. The other thing is this, and it happened to me. In a certain working environment that I was in, a certain employer. Anytime that you took off, it gave people an opportunity to sabotage you. We went into this on this show with the pushback faced by safety professionals, where we talked about Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals. When you go on vacation, you're supposed to be on vacation, but some people don't get that. There's no boundaries for them. I know this happened. I'll share with one. I was a site photographer for a site. First, there's one before smartphones and when we were still working on digital cameras that were like 5 megapixels. And we had a system in place to track photos. Okay, Jim, yeah, I'm going on vacation for a week. All right. So we turn it over to this other person, and this other person did not respect me at all. Maybe with good reason, I don't know. Did not respect me. At least it was her. Well, I know what I'm doing. No one's going to tell me what to do. Blah, 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 blah. So I wrote her instructions, and I said, look, you're going to download everything to this external hard drive. We actually have an external hard drive. So you take it from the camera, the chip out of the camera, You put it into the hard drive, into the computer. You download it, then you take that and you transfer it over to the hard drive. And we have it separated by days, right? So it would be like Monday the 12th, Tuesday the 13th, right? And you just load it in there. Very simple. Well, I'm not going to do that. Well, I'm telling you in writing, you got to do that. This is what it is. This is the system put up, and then you divvy them up. So it would be like area 1. This would be area 2, area 3, area 4. And you divide it all up. Then what do you think happened? What do you think she does? Your instructions weren't clear. Had it in writing. Went over it with her. She ended up, I ended up on vacation, and then I got on the way back from vacation and said, Jim, we need to go to another job for like a week. Yeah, no problem. So she was left to her own devices for like 2 weeks. What do you think? And nobody checked up on her. I called her up. Oh, yeah, everything is great. No problems. I get back, and turns out she lost all the photos. Why? Because she did something else, too. We have those little thumb drives now. They call them mini jumper, whatever. Back then, you got 256 megabytes on one. That was considered a lot. Now we got them with like 30 gigabytes, right? The little tiny ones. So what do you think she did? I said, okay, this is how this works. You put it in. I said, you got it. This is why this is only meant for transfer, not for long-term storage. So you got to put everything on that onto the hard drive. Do you understand? Yes. So what do you think she did? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to listen to him. What do you think happened? She lost all the photos for 2 weeks, and this was for a case that involved extensive litigation. We knew it was going to involve. That's why we had a system in place. Right? Well, who got the blame? Well, Jim did it. Jim got the blame. Oh, I don't know. I said, this was the written, I retained them. The email and everything. This were the written instructions. She didn't do anything of it. I don't even want to hear about it. And I told her not to do this. You have to ask her why she didn't listen to me. And of course, her being friends with the project manager, that didn't happen. Right? That didn't happen. But it got dropped. And thus began my leaving that company. I'm making plans to leave that company. Was because, they're not going to back you up. They're going to let. And of course, after she lost all the things, we had to reimburse the client for all this stuff we weren't able to bill out. It went into the 5 figures. And, of course, at the end of the year, she got a award for Employee of the Year. So you talk about perverse incentive structures. But I'm not bitter about it. I'm just saying this is what happens. You go away on vacation, whoever's going to take you over for you. If you haven't been doing your job, now you're screwed. Like, I'm going to be found out. The other thing that they do is that, hey, will the person sabotage me? Doesn't happen so much anymore because we have email and everything else, but hey, it's still, I can see where it does happen. I think that's probably one of the things that you feel guilty. Well, guess what? Yeah, you feel how about you feel nervous because you don't know what the hell the people are going to do afterwards. And there's another story too where I was given instructions on another job that I followed to the letter. Right? And they were the wrong instructions. Luckily, I got it in writing. Well, guess what? This all happened, and we're talking stuff that happened over 20 years ago. Guess what happened? Well, I came back from vacation. How come this wasn't done? I said, here's the written instructions right here, written by that gentleman. I followed these to the letter. If he, he was a supervisor. Don't blame me. Maybe I should have had a better way of handling it, and I admit that. But hey, here it is. Told me to do X, Y, didn't do X, Y, and Z. What do you want from me? Oh, and then what happened was I said, well, first of all, he's drunk all the time. Number one. Number two, he's trying to preserve his job. He doesn't like it that, he thinks that I'm out for his job, where I'm going to be promoted above him. Number three, he feels I'm an outsider. So maybe all this stuff. He gave me wrong instructions. Thank God I retained it in writing. And I said, number one and number two, it was along the lines of, these drinking at work. Number one, everyone knows is an open secret. Number one. Number two, how come when all of this happened, you didn't wait for me to get back to do your investigation? And again, that's another thing, right? People rush investigations when something goes wrong. It's got to be done immediately. Got to do it before Jim gets back from vacation. That was basically what it came down to. So, what else we got here? Chemical Safety Board. U.S. Chemical Safety Board urges chemical facilities to take action now to prevent chemical incidents with the upcoming hurricane season. This is from last week or 2 weeks ago. This is from the chemicalsafetyboard.gov. As the Atlantic hurricane season intensifies, U.S. Chemical Safety and Hazard Board Investigation Board is urging petroleum and chemical facilities to prepare now to help prevent catastrophic chemical releases during the season and ensure the safety of workers. Among other actions, the CSB recommends that chemical facilities review the various hurricane preparedness materials that the CSB has developed over the years. So here we have, key materials prepared by the CSB: extreme weather, extreme consequences of this, final report, investigation report. And there also is a Center for Chemical Process Safety's document on planning for unnatural hazards. And this is from a private organization for Center for Chemical Process Safety. And with that, probably good stuff that you could go over with that. Anyway, that's what we got. We're going to move over, and let me start with the introduction from the website here. So this is a prep talk from the FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency. This is from September 6, 2018, but not too much has changed from what I could see here. In his prep talk, Brooke Budenheimer educates emergency managers, community leaders, and public on the effects of nuclear detonation, critical protective actions, and the role of local emergency responders. His modeling of nuclear detonations demonstrates how getting indoors can save lives from the blast effects and fallout. If we recall, I think it was 3 years ago, New York City issued a PSA with this. Brooke Budenheimer is a certified health physicist at the Global Security Director of Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, providing technical leadership to deliver supporting science for radiological and nuclear terrorism risk assessments and response planning. I don't know what he's doing today. This is in 2018 here with that. So there you go here. I mean, it's pretty good. It's prep talks on FEMA. You could go on their website and with that, and they have all different, they have slides, they have resources, prep talks, and here you go. Prep talks are given by subject matter experts through leaders to spread new ideas, spark conversation, promote innovative leadership for the issues confronting emergency managers over the next 20 years. And they have here, explore more videos, and they got a lot of stuff going on here. No, they have like 30 videos listed, but I tell you what, some good information, some deep dives there. So we're going to do that. And this is going to be building up to Disaster Preparation Month. So with that in September. And again, I wrote a book on this. Probably going to need to reissue it here because my book predated this by about 6 years. And now, simplicity, right? And this is what we're dealing with here, is simplicity. Kind of reissue that. We'll see what goes on. So for Safety Wars, this is Jim Poesl. I will, God willing, see you over the weekend on this great network.
So I'm here to talk about a nuclear detonation. It's kind of a big topic, I know, but I want to set the stage first by saying about a decade ago, we had a workshop at the National Academies, and there was a responder from Chicago, Joe Newton, who was there. And he said, I don't know what perfect looks like. If we do everything right after a nuclear detonation, we got no idea what that looks like. And it's no wonder. If you went online, you could find preparedness guidance that would say, you should shelter. And other preparedness guidance say, you should evacuate. So if we can't answer the basic question of should you run or should you hide when you see a mushroom cloud, how can we possibly prepare? Now, I had the good fortune of working with state and local emergency management agencies across the U.S., and I took away a few observations in doing that. The first is, nobody really has a plan for the aftermath of a nuclear detonation. In particular, what we were looking at originally was this low-yield, ground-level nuclear terrorism event. And in fact, there's a lot of uncertainty about what the response needs even are and what the role of federal, state, and local agencies is. I get two basic reactions. One is, it doesn't matter, we're all dead anyway, right? And the other one is, nuclear detonation, that's a Fed thing, right? Wait for the guys in green to show up and save the day. Well, unfortunately, both of those reactions lead to an apathy in planning that could get hundreds of thousands of people killed or injured. Why? The critical decisions, the most important life-saving decisions, are those made in the first few minutes and hours of the event. And those are not going to be coming from Washington, D.C. Those are going to be things that the state and local communities need to do, and they need to be prepared to do them. So let's walk through a scenario. Since we're in Washington, D.C., I thought I'd take 1600 K Street, just down the street from here, and we're going to simulate what a 10-kiloton nuclear detonation might do to this city. So the first thing to understand is that a 10-kiloton nuclear detonation gives off a bright flash of light, the equivalent of 1,000 suns if you were standing a mile away. 10 kilotons is about the same as 5,000 Oklahoma City truck bombs all going off at once. We're going to use real weather from noon on February 14th, 2009. Happy Valentine's Day. And we're going to use casualty numbers based on workday population in D.C. Now, we've done all this modeling and analysis using some advanced techniques. After that workshop, we really got the scientific community together, all the federal agencies who had some understanding of what a nuclear detonation might mean. And we came together to try and solve this problem. So the information you're about to see provides some background. The first thing to understand is a 10-kiloton nuclear detonation is probably going to destroy just about everything out to half a mile. It's considered the severe damage zone. The next zone is the moderate damage zone. This goes from half a mile to a mile. Still a lot of destruction, but more survivors than fatalities. This is actually a focus of our emergency response because the people in that moderate damage zone are going to need help. To give you an idea what it might be like if you were a mile away from a 10 kiloton, I put together a little animation. So this would be the outer edge of that moderate damage zone. The first thing that's going to happen is you're going to get that bright flash of light, followed quickly by a thump. That thump is a shock wave being transmitted through the earth, which moves faster than the air blast, which will come several seconds later, blowing the glass into buildings, causing injury, but also bringing the facades of the building down. So from an event like this, in a built-up urban area, you can have tens of feet of rubble and debris in the streets just from all that material falling in. So as an emergency manager, if you're planning on evacuating people or bringing resources in, you need to understand what that condition is going to be like and how it's going to impact your response. So the third blast damage zone I want to talk about is the light damage zone. Light damage zone is defined by a couple different areas. The first thing to understand is that even at 3 miles away, glass is being broken with enough force to cause injury to somebody standing behind that window. That bright flash of light causes something called flash blindness. It's not permanent, maybe only 15 seconds or a minute. If you're standing on a street corner, it's not a big deal. But you and everybody around you driving down the freeway at 60 miles an hour is suddenly blind. You can imagine what that's going to do to our thoroughfares. Flash blindness during the day can go out 10 miles or more. That's the Beltway. So if you're planning on moving resources around, keep in mind, roads are probably going to be blocked. At night, flash blindness can go much further. All this went into trying to define that light damage zone. That light damage zone goes from 1 mile to 3 miles. Most people in that zone are not going to be injured. And the types of injuries that we might expect in that zone are probably going to be lacerations from flying glass or maybe some minor crush injury from things falling on you. These pictures were taken 1.5 miles away from a solid rocket fuel booster facility that blew up in Henderson, Nevada. It was about the equivalent of a 1 kiloton explosion. And at 1.5 miles away, it still had enough shock to pop that roof of that warehouse in and blow that glass across that office building. All right, so we've had our 3 zones, our severe damage zone, our moderate damage zone, and our light damage zone. So these are the prompt effects, the blast waves that are going to come out from a 10 kiloton. The next thing we need to worry about is fallout. Now, fallout is formed when the fireball from the explosion, which is so hot, it actually shoots up at over 100 miles per hour. That fireball sucks up dirt and debris with it, thousands of tons of dirt and debris. And it mixes with all the radioactive material that was generated during the nuclear explosion to create fallout. This fallout cloud will rise over the first few minutes after the event, stabilize maybe at 5 miles into the atmosphere. Now, to sort of visualize what that cloud is doing with time, we've sort of exported our models into this display. So you can see those sort of purple ping pong balls. Those represent what the cloud is doing. The color changes on the ground represents what happened after those fallout particles get back to the ground and the radiation levels that they give off. So I'm going to show you what's happening over the first few hours of this event. You can see the clock in the upper right-hand corner. 2 hours, the bottom part of the cloud is swept over BWI. You notice it only took an hour for the top part of the cloud to get out over the Atlantic? That's because at 5 miles, the winds are going a lot faster than on the ground, and often in a different direction. So if you go like this, and okay, which way is the cloud going to go? You probably are going to guess wrong. And your chances of outrunning that cloud aren't that great to begin with. Now I'm going to keep the clock going forward 3 hours, 4 hours. You can see there was actually a wind shift in the afternoon, and some of that material started coming back down. 6 hours in, you can see the expanse of the contaminated area. 12 hours now, you're going to see something strange happen. It's actually shrinking. And the reasons it's shrinking is we define these zones by the radiation levels. And that's the silver lining of our fallout cloud. Radiation decays, and actually fairly rapidly. Radiation from the fallout gives off half of its energy in the first hour, 80% in the first day. What you're concerned about is not breathing fallout. It's these salt and sand-sized particles that come down to the ground, land, and give off this penetrating gamma radiation. Avoiding that gamma radiation is what you're trying to do when you protect yourself from fallout, which is why where you go after an event like this is really important. You want to go to a spot that gets you as far away from the fallout that's on the roof or on the ground and has as much mass between you and the fallout as possible. Now you can think of the numbers on the screen like SPF of sunscreen. The bigger the number, the better the protection. Getting into, if you happen to be in a suburban neighborhood, getting to the middle of your house would be great. If you got a basement, even better. Even a half basement's fine. Getting into a basement can give you adequate protection. And if you're in an urban area like this, where most brick buildings, cement buildings, 3 or 4 story buildings, you've got great protection options. I'll also say that this building, I encourage you when you walk out to look up at it. This is a big brick building. There's a stairway going downstairs, so we know there's a basement. You could easily get protection factors of 100 or more in the core, in the middle of this building, or in the basement. All right, so given the availability of sheltering, we asked the question, how many lives can be saved through sheltering? Well, in order to answer that question, I sort of need a control group. So if everybody in the scenario I just talked about for a Washington, D.C. explosion, if everybody stood outside for the first 24 hours, not the recommended strategy, but if everybody stood outside for the first 24 hours, we would have about 280,000 people that would get enough radiation exposure to make them sick or potentially kill them. But if those same people, all of the people in DC, just ran into a poor shelter, not that you can find a lot of poor shelters in DC, it takes a while to find a 1 or 2 story wood frame house, but if everybody ran into one of those, we would still save 150,000 people from significant exposure if everybody just went into a poor shelter. And if you went into what we consider an adequate shelter, which is, say, a half basement of a wood frame house, or the worst shelter location in this building, if you went to the top floor next to the roof or on the periphery of the building, you'd still have a protection factor of 10. We would save 245,000 people from significant exposure. And the people that did get some kind of exposure tend to be in the sick but not dead category. Now, I'll say in DC, it's not hard to find protection factor 50 or more. If everybody in DC were able to get in that protection factor 50, there's a basement in this building, the core of this building, or more, we'd have no fallout casualties, no fallout significant exposures. Fallout is a preventable casualty. And it takes time for the fallout to get to us. Remember that cloud? It's got to get up, cool, all those particles come back down. Even if you're close to the event, you've got at least 15 minutes before that material starts accumulating. So you've got time. So how long? That's the next question I get. All right, you sold me, we're going to shelter. How long do we have to hang out together? Because that candy machine ain't going to supply us for long. Well, remember that decay rate I talked about? So I've sort of circled in that yellow dashed line the dangerous fallout zone from this event. At 1 hour, it's about that size. The dangerous fallout zone is an area where you can actually get enough exposure to make you sick or potentially kill you. Now, as I move the clock forward, 2 hours, 3 hours, notice how quickly that's shrinking back. So you really just want to avoid being outside in the first few hours of this event. After a couple days, that dangerous fallout zone actually disappears. Now, there's still contamination. Don't get me wrong, your meters be clicking like crazy. But the radiation levels that cause that acute injury really decay away in the first few hours and days of the event. So out of all of this work in the science, a bunch of great guidance was developed. The planning guides for response to nuclear detonation and communication guides and health and safety guides have all been developed to help emergency managers understand and prepare for an event like this. And hopefully, we may never have to, but if you need to, help you respond. I'll simplify it though. Comes down to really a couple simple things. Get inside. Get inside the basement or the middle of the building, same place you would go for a hurricane or a tornado. Plan to stay there 12 to 24 hours. And stay tuned. AM/FM radio works best because outside of the area of impact, radio towers will still be working, and those messages and that transmission can get into the places that have been impacted. Okay, these days we get a lot of questions about, well, what about higher yields? What about missile-delivered things? Well, let me give you a quick comparison. So in the middle I have the 10 kiloton. That's what I've been talking about, sort of our improvised nuclear device concept. On the right is 100 kiloton. Now, yeah, it's definitely bigger. But the range of effect is only about twice as far. So these zones that I've been talking about, the severe damage zone, which goes out half a mile, the moderate, which goes from half a mile to a mile, it only doubles the range of those effects. What about an airburst? Well, we've got a couple of real-world examples with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Those were detonated between 1,500 and 2,000 feet. And you'll notice something when you look at these pictures. Yes, there's that mushroom cloud, but the white cap, which was created during the explosion and has all of the radioactive material created from the fission process, doesn't quite connect with all the dirt and debris that was pulled up. There's an air gap there. And in fact, the small fission products that were created in the explosion actually stay up in the upper atmosphere, which is why Hiroshima and Nagasaki had little or no fallout. So if a detonation occurs far enough off the ground that you don't get that mixing, you don't get a lot of local fallout. So we've got Duck and Cover 2.0. What does it mean for civil defense these days with all these various nuclear terrorism threats, nation-state threats? Well, if you have an imminent threat, if somebody's launching something at us, we'll know about it and generally have an opportunity to provide a warning. It may not be long, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. But the same place that you went to protect yourself from fallout is a great place to go to protect yourself from the prompt effects, from the blast. Getting into the center of a building, getting into a basement of a building can provide a lot of protection, just like hurricanes and tornadoes. Now, Duck and Cover, Bert the Turtle from the Cold War, was really all about a no-notice attack. You see a bright flash, dive into the corner, cover your head. I don't think we need to go back there as a nation with that hypervigilance and waiting for the bomb. But if you are aware that there is a potential threat of an attack, and you see a bright flash, it's probably not a bad idea to duck down. Because what that helps with is avoiding potential blast effects and maybe even some of the thermal effects. And fallout. So fallout's the same regardless of whether it's a missile or detonate on the ground. If the detonation occurs close enough to the ground for that mixing of the fission products with the dirt and debris, you can generate fallout. The good news is it takes a while for that fallout to rise up and come back down. And there's a lot of places that you can go that can protect yourself from the penetrating gamma radiation from that fallout and really keep yourself safe, keep your family safe. Okay, get inside, stay tuned still works. I don't want to minimize it. This is definitely a catastrophic event. More than 750,000 people would be within those blast zones I talked about, 500,000 within that dangerous fallout zone. But there's a lot of resources in this area to help save lives, if we know what to do. If you go to a CDC website, you can see what it means to get inside, what it means to stay inside, and what it means to stay tuned. And guess what? As emergency managers, guess where you fall in? When that stay tuned pops up, they're looking for you to provide a message. And that message needs to be informed by situational awareness. Where's the best places to go? How do you avoid the fallout? What places are safe? What places aren't? Are you ready? There's a couple tools that DHS is developing to help you. This is called the Rapid Hazard Assessment Tool. And instead of, these detailed models, this one is just a simple, put down a pie wedge, bad stuff's probably going to be going in this direction. The idea is eventually this might be in an EOC, even without an internet connection, that will allow you to run these tools yourself and figure out where the potential impacted areas might be. If you want to plan, if you want to prepare for an event like this, there's a great tool called the City Planning Resource that FEMA has put together. And across the U.S., we've looked at all major cities, identified what the predominant weather patterns are of concern, done a variety of yields to look at the response needs, and built reports and analysis and GIS systems that allow you to put together a plan that's informed by good analysis and science. There's things that can help. I hope you think about a little bit of preparedness, because just a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of preparedness can save a lot of lives. Thank you. Let people in.
Yeah.
Do not lock them out. And actually, decon is a lot easier than you might think. We actually did a lot of tests in the Nevada desert, and in our infinite wisdom, they actually had soldiers running around 30 minutes after the detonation and the fallout. Dry, dusty environment. The decon procedure, broom. This is dirt and debris. And so they brush the soldiers off, they measured them and verified that they were clean. So this isn't like a sticky residue that you're not going to be able to get off. Fallout is easy to remove. And in fact, when you look at the old civil defense, they say, take your hat off, and you see the fallout coming off of it. But yes, take your shoes off, take your outer layer of clothing off, and that will remove most of the fallout. And the important thing to think about here is that, remember that rapid decay? The fallout's most dangerous early. So getting it off fast is more important than getting it off thoroughly. So don't wait in line for the shower. A great question, and look, I think we've all been involved in exercises where there's a toxic material release, and it's like, okay, the response is over. All right, where's EPA? We'll hand it off. You know, it's really important to begin that recovery process when the event occurs. If you're in emergency management, please consider standing up that recovery-focused IMT almost immediately. They need to be thinking about things that will save lives and sustain lives while people are being rescued, because that recovery slope is overlapping with the response slope. There are a number of great documents that I would refer you to. The Nuke Rad Incident Annex is out there, as well as the federal planning guidance. And all of these offer you some suggestions on where to go to help the recovery process succeed. Just to put it into context, a 10 kiloton was used for improvised device planning because that's about the same size as our first nuclear device, Trinity, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, all sort of in that factor of 2 range of a 10 kiloton. I'll remind you that our first nuclear weapon, Trinity, was an implosion device. Highly technical, it worked. Our second nuclear device was Little Boy. It was an entirely different design. It was a gun-assembled device, which we used in warfare for the first time, and it worked. So, answer is not the technical challenge. There's not an overwhelming technical challenge. What we try to do is prevent people from getting the fuels that are necessary.